Today we will find out if our Kansas Jayhawks are headed back to the college football playoff here in season number 4. All signs point to yes, given that we're currently ranked number 5 and we're not playing in a conference championship game. But it'll be nice to have that assurance once it happens, and it'll be interesting to see who our opponent is in the first round and what our potential long-term draw might look like. So we wrapped up the season with a record of 10-2, beating BYU in the last episode 40-21, and we knew this game was kind of all or nothing for us with no more chances of making the conference title game. We knew we had to win this one. If we lost, we probably would not have gotten an at-large spot at all, or we certainly wouldn't have deserved one, losing to 2-10 BYU. But luckily, we took care of business early. We were able to bring in the backups in the second half. It was a really, really strong win. But we did lose star running back Ty Lord, who dislocated his ankle in the first quarter and will be unlikely to return at any point during the college football playoff. That's going to be a huge loss for us, but otherwise the rest of the team played really well. The pass rush was good. Mario Maddox, having him back has been really big for this offense. Dekias Brinkley as well. He was out for a handful of games, comes back and immediately gets 2 sacks. So with our regular season in the books, I figured I might as well show our final regular season stats, albeit I'm hoping that we'll be able to add to these totals with a few more games given a college football playoff run. But again, it will be without sophomore running back Ty Lord, who is kind of 1A, 1B with Cornell Teamer. Not quite as efficient as a runner as he was a year ago, but still a very valuable piece of this offense and has been really impactful in the receiving game, whether that's out of the backfield or in the slot. So not having him is really going to change things. For one thing, Cornell Teamer is going to be the 1A out of the backfield, almost like Devin Neal was in Season 1. We're going to ask more out of Jazeer Tolbert as well. I feel like Tolbert has played his best football over these last couple of weeks. And then we're probably going to need more production through the air. And I think having Mario Maddox back healthy should certainly help that. The offensive line is coming off a few solid games in a row, and then defensively, it's been up and down, but I think it's a better defense than what we had last year, and it'll be more foolproof going into the playoff, and it helps that our kicker, Anthony Escalante, is perfect on the season. So let's start with going through the conference championships. We, of course, will not be in the Big 12 title game. We've only made it once, which we lost back in Season 1. This is what the playoff picture currently looks like. We'd be the 7th seed facing off against USC in the first round with a potential matchup against Iowa in the second round. I don't think we're going to be the 3rd at-large team, though. We're probably going to be higher than that because if we look at the other conference title games, you have number 1 Alabama versus number 2 Mississippi in the SEC. Number 3 Oregon versus number 4 Iowa in the Big Ten. So there's a real shot we jump the losers of this game, potentially move up to the 5 seed, which would really help us. That would likely match us up with the 4th and 5th conference champions in our group of 3. There's a chance that's 2 Group 5 teams. If Virginia Tech loses to West Virginia, the ACC will likely be a 0-bid league, and we would likely have 2 Group of 5 conference champions. So along with the SEC and the Big Ten title games likely deciding the top 2 seeds, there's also the Big 12 game. The 6-7 matchup with Florida State and TCU. The winner of that game will be the number 3 seed. The loser probably still makes the playoff. But again, I would think we certainly would end up higher than the loser of that game in terms of an at-large spot, even though Florida State beat us earlier in the year. The pivotal game for me is the ACC one. If Virginia Tech wins, they'll be in the playoff. They'll be the number 4 seed. But I don't think West Virginia would make it in if they win because it's the 5 highest-ranked conference champions. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Power 5 champion. In terms of the Group 5 conferences, Nevada would likely get first dibs if they won. Then it goes down to possibly Wyoming if they get the upset. Maybe South Alabama. I would think certainly the winner of UAB and USF would have an argument. And then it'll be hard for any of the teams below them to get in, but I'd watch out for Miami, Buffalo, and Oregon State. If all hell breaks loose, say Wyoming wins, say UAB wins, say one of those teams win big, you never know. It's possible. Before we get to the conference championships, though, let's go through recruiting. We'll go through a few weeks here, eventually leading up to National Signing Day. So we went over where we stand in the previous episode, but to rehash, We are currently struggling in some of these late season battles. I think this class is going to have a lot less quantity than we've seen in recent years. Our most recent loss, tight end Elliott McGowan, who's going to West Virginia. I really like McGowan. I think he's going to outplay his ranking. Now, we did get another highly ranked tight end in Edward Babers, but I really like the fit of McGowan here. B.J. MacArthur's down to 3. We're in second. I don't think we're going to get him. We are in first for Tony Dawson, though, so we should be able to land him. Certainly sucks losing McGowan, but again, with Edward Babers, who's better, maybe a worse fit, though, I think we'll be okay. We're going to take Devontae Blunt off the board, given that he has locked us out. He is now down to his top 3. A player we just added, wide receiver Stephen Helfett, we've taken the lead for, but Missouri, interestingly, had the same idea as us, so we'll be competing with our rivals to land him. As I mentioned earlier, though, many of these tight races were struggling. MacArthur, I think we're going to lose out on. Tony Dawson, we had the lead for, but Syracuse and Ohio State are making ground. Troy Fields, we had the lead for a while, but he just had a really good visit with Washington. We're in second for Proctor, we're in second for Tavecchio, we're in second for Soriano, second for Maloney, third for Ian Rousseau. So of the guys who are down to 5 or less, we're only in first for 1. Defensive end, Major Westerman, and we're barely in first place for him. Definitely not as much success on the recruiting trail this year compared to prior seasons. Now, the players we did get, I think, are going to be really good, but not as large of the class. We've had some really big classes over the last couple of years, so I don't think it'll be that big of a deal, but still a little bit disappointing as we do lose on MacArthur, which was expected. I'm really disappointed we lost out on Troy Fields, though. I felt like for a while we were going to land him, and then Washington swoops in late. As for the 4 guys who are down to 3, we're in second for all of them. This is not where we want to be because it's really hard to jump teams once you're down to 3. We do have the lead for some of these guys, including center Tyler Johnson and safety Benji Sanders, 2 guys who we are really going to prioritize going forward. We ended up putting max points on close to everybody this week, so there wasn't much strategy in terms of how we used our points, but we ended up losing more races. Prince Higgins has locked us out. Tyler Tavecchio is going to Notre Dame. And then Tony Dawson, who we had the lead for going into the top 3, goes to Syracuse. We were jumped by them and Ohio State for him. Major Westerman and Alex Soriano are down to 3. We're no longer in the lead for Westerman. Soriano is still in second. So a rough stretch for us recruiting. We lost out on about 4 or 5 different players, and we landed no one. So that's certainly disappointing. Let's hope the conference championship games are not as disappointing. Our rooting interest is for as much chaos as possible. We want to be able to get the number 5 seed and potentially match up with a group of 5 team in the first round. I don't think it'll be the winner of Kennesaw State and UTEP. This is the one game that I know has 0 playoff implications, but the Owls ended up winning this game over the Miners. Shout out Wander Franco as Kennesaw State wins the Conference USA title 20-10 in a low-scoring, grinded-out defensive matchup. The Owls now ranked number 24 with a solid showing by the lefty quarterback Ezekiel Long. DJ Scott, the senior running back, played well, and Evan Epps, the sophomore receiver who's had a great year, had a phenomenal performance en route to the win for Kennesaw State. Miami and Buffalo in the MAC. Miami is ranked, but Buffalo's been arguably more impressive this year. They have the resume wins, such as Michigan and West Virginia. However, they ended up losing this game to the Redhawks. Senior quarterback Eddie Escobar, one of the top Group 5 quarterbacks in the country, helped lead Miami to the win over the Bulls. Miami would still need a lot to go their way if they want to be one of the potential conference champions in the playoff, but it's possible. Their come-from-behind 27-24 win here against Buffalo certainly helps their case, although they didn't move up at all in the poll, which is kind of weird. I mean, Buffalo's a very strong team. I feel like Miami at least deserved to go up a couple spots with them winning this game, but I guess not. So they're really going to need all the help in the world, and even so, it would feel pretty unlikely. But a strong season nonetheless for the Redhawks as they end up winning the MAC. Let's go to the Pac-12 championship game, our new-look Pac-12 conference. Oregon State made the playoff a couple years ago, and they're looking to make it back, led by redshirt freshman quarterback Gabriel Allers, who's one of the highest-rated freshman quarterbacks in the country and a likely freshman All-American. He would lead the Beavers to the win over Fresno State. Oregon State very clearly was the best team in the Pac-12 this year. I'm pretty sure they went undefeated in conference play. They climb up to number 16, so it's doable. If they have a few things go away, this is the first one that actually kind of feels possible that they could get in. They'll still need some help on the way, but it is possible for Oregon State to get one of those Group of 5 conference champion slots. The Group of 5 field is very strong this year, I will point out, with teams like the Beavers. Gabriel Ehlers had a very solid game, 6'5", 205, already an 85 overall. Certainly some long-term NFL upside with him. I'm curious to see if he enters the portal after this season or if he decides to stay with the Beavers. South Alabama facing off against the thundering herd of Marshall. The Fun Belt has been very fun this year, and we had a fun ending as Marshall would pull off the upset. The Jaguars went into this week 10-2, ranked number 15. They were the second highest ranked Group of 5 team coming into the week. So them winning and Virginia Tech losing is really all it would have took for them to probably get into the playoff, but they get upset here by Marshall scoring nothing in the second half. The only points after halftime when their offense was on the field was a safety in the fourth quarter by Marshall to clinch it. So an unfortunate result here for South Alabama. It will not be like the NCAA Next Up series where they made the playoff multiple times, even made the national championship in season number 1. Shout out Cardell Simpson. Real ones know. So South Alabama losing, that opens the door wide open for one of these two teams, UAB and USF, especially because the winner of this game is going to have a nice statement win at the end of their season, and it ended up being the Bulls of South Florida who put up 52 points on the Blazers, winning in dominant fashion 52-21 with 7 all-purpose touchdowns from senior quarterback Israel Carter, including outscoring UAB 35-7 in the second half. What a loud and clear victory here for USF. And as I said, the door is wide open. If one of Nevada or Virginia Tech loses, I think USF makes it into the playoff as a 12 seed. They very well could be Kansas' first round matchup, and if they are, I'd be kind of scared. Here's another big one, Wyoming versus Nevada in the Mountain West. Nevada, the highest ranked Group of 5 team coming into the week, looks like they have a playoff spot on lock with a win, and they would end up taking care of business. Nevada wins at 27-17. They were down 10-0 after the first quarter, so an impressive comeback. Marcus Copper is only a 73 overall, but he plays a lot better than that. They have a really good skill position group with multiple NFL-level pass catchers. Wyoming's playoff hopes fall short, and it looks like Nevada will get a spot. They might get a first-round bye, but they would need Virginia Tech to lose to West Virginia. I think this is the biggest game of the week. Nevada fans are watching on edge. USF fans certainly watching on edge. And the ACC is hoping for a miracle. They cannot have a zero-bid season. So they ended up getting some good news as Virginia Tech defeats West Virginia in the ACC title game. So it looks like Virginia Tech will be the 4 seed. Chances are Nevada is the 5, or I guess in this case they'd be the 12 seed, but the 5th conference champion. Maybe USF is able to grab the spot though. Davy Belfort with 4 touchdowns, 3 of which were caught by senior receiver Aiden Green, who got injured in this game. That could be really bad news for Virginia Tech. They're certainly happy that chances are they will get a bye week. Valiant effort from West Virginia. They could have made the playoff, if they didn't lose 4 of their last 5 games. And now we get to the big boys, the top 3 seeds set to be decided as we start with the 6-7 matchup between Florida State and TCU in our conference, the Big 12. This ended up being a fun game, but the Frogs would get the win over FSU, and it looks like TCU will be the 3 seed in the playoff. Got to imagine Florida State still makes it in anyway. Even with 4 losses, their statement wins at the end of the year on the road against Kansas and Florida should be enough to be able to maintain their strong standing resume. Luke Kromenhoek was awesome in this game. Same amount of passing touchdowns as he had incompletions to go along with over 100 yards on the ground. He may very well be one of, if not the best, quarterbacks in the playoff field, but if not him, it might be Hoss Haney. Both of these guys have a strong case for the Heisman, and if not for Eli Holstein, they might be the 2 favorites. Oregon and Iowa in the Big Ten title game. Iowa, kind of the team we didn't really expect coming into the year. They've been really strong. And then Oregon, who started the year off really slowly. They've played a lot better down the stretch. But Iowa would end up winning this game, and it looks like the Hawkeyes will get a first-round bye, most likely the 2 seed in the playoff as they beat Oregon 35-20. Very close game going into the fourth, but Iowa was able to really dominate down the stretch. Oregon, I feel like, is in a weird spot. They're going to make the playoff, and there's a good chance that they will be the only team in this series to have made the playoff in each of the first 4 seasons. This definitely feels like their weakest team, though. No more Dylan Gabriel, no more Dante Moore. Austin Mack really struggled in this game. Oregon is a very talented roster, but certainly not of the level of the teams of the past. But that's really a credit to Dan Lanning. Even in a rebuilding year, they still make the playoff. And finally, we've got the big boys. It just means more in the SEC. Number 2 Mississippi State, number 1 Alabama for the number 1 overall seed in the playoff. And it's really felt like over the last few weeks, it's Alabama and everyone else. Well, this game ended up proving that. I was expecting a competitive matchup between the top 2 teams. No, not even close. And I think this touchdown with a defensive pass interference showed it. 47-7. Alabama crushes Mississippi State. And this is very good news for us because it's more likely we could potentially pass a team like Mississippi State in the rankings. Eli Holstein was fantastic. 5 all-purpose touchdowns. I feel like this whole season for him was the Heisman moment. Maybe this game in particular. 4 passing touchdowns to 4 different receivers, all of whom are NFL caliber prospects. Steven Schreiber, who's been one of the best backs in the country, only had 5 touches. That's kind of inexcusable. So Alabama, Iowa, TCU, and Virginia Tech are likely to be our top 4. It'll be interesting to see who gets that last spot. USF with a huge win, blowing out UAB. That's got to turn some heads with the committee. But based on the prior rankings, Nevada, you'd think, might possibly have the edge. As for the players of the week, obviously Israel Carter wins it on offense. He is joined by Alabama defensive tackle Curtis Perry. And then in the Big 12, 2 Florida State guys, even though they lost, with Luke Cromanhook and Amari Williams. So now it is time for the moment of truth. The 2027 College Football Playoff reveal. Who will be the 12? What will be the order as we have our bracket ready? Not really as much suspense this year in terms of if Kansas is going to make it. In seasons 1 and 3, we didn't really know if we would get in, and we ended up being one of the last teams in both times. This year, it feels very likely that we will grab a playoff spot. It's more so about where, what our seeding will be, and what our draw ends up looking like. I think given where this team is at and what the playing field looks like, I have more confidence this season than either years 1 or 3 that we can make a run, even though we did back in season 1. So without further ado, the number 1 overall seed, the Crimson Tide of Alabama. No major surprise here. They've been head and shoulders the best team in the country, and they are the clear favorite to win the whole thing. That doesn't necessarily mean they will, though. Look at Oregon in season number 1. They looked unbeatable until they were beaten in the Rose Bowl. Clemson in season number 2. They had the best team in the country just to lose in the Final Four. Last year, there was no clear favorite, leading to all of the chaos, but this year, it really does feel like Alabama is in a league of their own, and I'm curious to see if we finally get a number 1 seed that ends up winning the title. They're certainly worthy of it. They have the best player in the country with Eli Holstein, who's probably going to win the Heisman, and has likely positioned himself as a first-rounder. Alrighty, our second team in the playoff will be the Hawkeyes of Iowa. Not a team high on the radar going into the year, but they play really well on both sides of the ball. They have a really good pass rusher who we're going to talk about a little bit later today. TCU is the 3rd seed as expected, the winner of the Big 12, which ended up being a really strong conference this year. They will be the 3rd team in, and that means there's one more bye to automatically advance to the quarterfinal. It is Virginia Tech. The Hokey Pokeys, champions of the ACC and likely the only ACC team in the field, will be the 4 seed. As for the 12 seed and the final conference champion, it is Nevada. So the Wolfpack will get the last spot. USF, meanwhile, looks like they're out. Group 5 teams are 0-3 in the playoff in this series, but 2 of those bad losses, last year with Charlotte, the year before with Oregon State, they had byes. In year 1, Tulane did not have a bye, and they almost beat Texas in the first round. They arguably should have beaten Texas. So now it's time for the other 7 spots as decided by the committee. We're going to go backwards, and as you can see, the final team in is Ohio State. Now, they got lucky. This really should be Notre Dame. But the Fighting Irish blew a 28-3 fourth-quarter lead in the final week of the regular season against Stanford, which pushed them out of the playoff and out of the rankings entirely. So Ohio State is the beneficiary. They grabbed the spot. There's USC. They get the 10 slot. Sam Onatulu led the Trojans to a spot in the Final Four last year, and if the field is the group that we expected, USC will likely be the only team who won a playoff game last year who's back in the field this year. Onatulu will have more experience than any quarterback in this year's playoff field, and that certainly will give him an advantage. As for the 8-9 matchup, this could be a really fun game. I know the committee normally does not like to group up conference opponents, but if USC were to win their first round matchup, they would play against Iowa in the second round at the Rose Bowl. That's practically a home game for USC. So this could end up being a very favorable draw for the Trojans, especially if they end up winning that first game against the 7th seed, who we'll find out in a little bit. All right, we're getting down to it. There's Florida State. The Seminoles end up as the 9th seed. They made the playoff back in year number 2, but Luke Kromenhoek's preseason injury last year killed their momentum. Well, Kromenhoek is back, and so are the Seminoles. Who will they play in the first round, though? Florida State, I think, is as good as just about anybody in this field, given how well they've played as of recent. If they do win in the first round, they would have to play Alabama, which would certainly be a tough matchup, and they're going to have a tough matchup in round number 1 to begin with. The 8-9 matchup might be the most competitive game of the first round, and now we're really starting to get to the seedings where this could end up being us. The 7th seed and playing against USC in the first round will not be Kansas. It's the Oregon Ducks, and this sets up a fascinating dynamic at the bottom. USC, Oregon, and Iowa all grouped together. The 3 Big Ten teams in the same pod. Iowa just played Oregon in the Big Ten Championship. This could set up a similar dynamic to what we saw last year, with Notre Dame and Michigan being grouped together along with us. Notre Dame beat Michigan in the Big Ten title game, and then they beat them again in the second round of the playoff before obviously winning the whole thing. And so for the moment of truth, the 6th seed is the Bulldogs of Mississippi State. After getting blasted in the SEC Championship, they've got a lot to prove. They'll play against Ohio State in the first round, and they'll be grouped with TCU for the second round. And that means only one thing. The Kansas Jayhawks are the 5 seed, the highest at-large team. We will play Nevada at home in the first round of the playoff, and if we win, we will play against Virginia Tech. I think this is a pretty favorable draw for us, all things considered. We were hoping to be the number 5 seed coming into the day, so we play against 2 of the conference champions, specifically one of the group of 5 teams. Nevada's going to be an interesting first-round matchup, though. They're one of the highest-rated group of 5 teams in the game. They only lost 1 game all year. It'll be interesting to see how we perform against them if we can get to a Virginia Tech matchup in the Fiesta Bowl for the second round, and if we win that, there's a good chance we would see Alabama in the Final Four. So, as it turns out, Mississippi State and Oregon, who were ranked ahead of us coming into Conference Championship Week, both go below us. TCU jumping us, I didn't really expect that, although they do deserve it, and it doesn't hurt us in any way. We would still be the 5 seed regardless. As for some of the player awards, let's start with the Heisman Trophy, and to no surprise, it's Eli Holstein of Alabama. He's had this award locked up for about a month, and he has just been adding to his resume, one of the most dominant Heisman seasons ever, with Hoss Haney, Luke Kromenhoek, Lenore Sellers, and Sam Onatulu rounding out the top 5. And we'll get to see 4 of those 5 quarterbacks in the playoff this year. Lenore Sellers of Clemson, the only objection. As for the player awards, I think the player of the year is just an extended version of the Heisman because the top 5 is always the same. So here's basically the top 12 of the Heisman. Nevada gets the coach of the year. Hard to disagree with that given how good of a season they had. Connor Lineski, redshirt sophomore from Iowa, had 21 sacks, likely to be a top 5 pick this year. We're going to learn more about him as the playoff goes along, with Tykius Brinkley and Seth Jennings both in the top 12 for best defensive player. Damani Maxon, Taylor Davis in the race for best defensive back. Cornell Teamer, 6th for the best running back, which is won by Caden Durham of LSU. It's interesting because he's not their leading rusher, and he only averages 3.5 yards per carry, but he is excellent as a receiver. Primarily plays in the slot, so he probably doesn't really deserve to win the award. Seth Jennings and Tykius Brinkley both in the top 10 for best defensive lineman and best defensive end. Both very well deserved, especially impressive for Brinkley, who missed a quarter of the year. Isaiah Lamore in 9th for the top tight end. The offensive coordinator of Nevada wins the Broyles Award, so Nevada bringing in a few awards, while Anthony Escalante comes in 6th for the Lou Groza Award. How the mighty have risen. I mean, he could not make a clutch kick to make his life as a freshman, and now here we are. We did not have any All-Americans. I was a little bit disappointed by that, but then again, who would really make it? It was a team effort for us and not one or two individual stars. No freshman All-Americans either, but we do have a lot of guys in the Big 12 awards. First team All-Big 12 for Cornell Teamer and Salmon Pemba. Interesting that he ended up being our defender. Clyde Poole made All-Conference last year, but with Hoss Haney and Luke Cromenhook finishing in the top 3 for the Heisman, I get it. Carter Leversky, Seth Jennings, and Tykius Brinkley end up on the second team. And then on the freshman team, we have Nicholas Scotland Williamson, Reggie Chanel, Benji Trahan, Kenyon Denbo, Kerry Folk, Santiago Herrera, and Teron Jean-Pierre, along with Greg Von Oelhoffen. So pretty much every freshman who played meaningful snaps for us. Von Oelhoffen only played 4 games. He's being redshirted, so he has a chance to make the all-freshman team twice next year, theoretically. I'm a little surprised Alpha G did not get a spot. The 5 stars. We take a look at the bowl games. Kansas State will play against New Mexico State while we're in the playoff. How funny. Florida and Texas coming into bowl season depressed, as is Notre Dame. Notre Dame versus Texas in a battle of the final week of the season chokers. As for Florida, the team who I thought was the favorite to win the title coming into the year, they lost in the first round last year. They brought their entire team back just to fall flat on their face the final 2 weeks of the year. It's also National Signing Day as well, which means we get to look at the development traits of the players who have committed to schools. Only normal for B.J. MacArthur, but we did not get as lucky with some of the other guys who went elsewhere. Tyler Tavecchio has star. I don't know what side of the ball he's going to play, but I think he's going to be good. Troy Fields has star. That's a big loss. Simons has impact. Yanibuife has star. And Elliott McGowan has elite. Many of the top development traits of players were guys on other teams. Lane Aragon and Kevin Hodges have impact. Normal for Rashard Oakham. Trey West, the quarterback, is elite. Normal for Hakeem Ficken. Impact for Elijah Parrish. I wasn't really too worried about this one. I think Parrish is just going to be a stud regardless. Star for Emmett Hall. Impact for Edward Babers. And normal for Jamison Michaels. We really did not get lucky with the development traits at all. We only had 1 star. And that was Emmett Hall, who almost did not end up committing to us to begin with. The last order of business is introducing this Nevada team who went 12-1. They played 0 Power 5 opponents this year, and that's the big question with them. How are they going to perform against an upper level of competition? Their only loss was a blowout against New Mexico State. Ironic that they're playing Kansas State in their bowl game. But otherwise, it's been a great year for Nevada, and they've peaked at the right time. Their offense is playing their best football over the last 6 weeks, and they've got a dominant group on that side of the ball. The skill position players are the strength of this roster. Sophomore quarterback Marcus Copper is only a 74, but he plays so much better than that because these guys have NFL caliber skill guys. Barry Brown is a legit running back. He's got good size, highly productive this year. And then the receivers, they've got NFL guys there. Marshawn Brown, big-bodied, 6'4", having a great year. Nate Burles in the second, NFL DNA. Tight end Hayden George, another NFL prospect. He's been statistically one of the best tight ends in the country this year. Defensively, I do have some questions about this team. I think we'll be able to score points. It's really a matter of how explosive their offense will be. They have a really explosive passing game, receivers with size and speed. I think that sets up a bad matchup for us defensively. And even though we're probably the heavy favorite coming into this game, it's certainly not a gimme. Nevada's a total wild card. We don't know how they're going to play against a power conference opponent. Just because they haven't done it doesn't mean they're going to be bad at it. We have a 0-game sample of that, so we really have no clue what to expect, which I think makes this game an interesting dynamic. That'll wrap up the episode. Next time around, first round of the playoffs. We'll watch all 4 games, including our first home playoff game of the series, hosting the University of Nevada. That'll wrap up the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Rock Chalk!